Well, good morning, everyone. Or I should say afternoon, actually. It's afternoon. There's a clock on the wall behind me that will tell you it's the afternoon. So, sorry about that. It is the afternoon. And what I wanted to talk about in this short video today was to talk about something that is very common to many of us, and some more than others, but something we've all experienced at some point in our lives, and that is anger. Anger. Talk about anger. And the reason why I talk about that today is because we all know that, as I mentioned there, it's something we can struggle with, something that we can fall into. We all get angry about different things, and we're often told not to be angry and to get our anger under control, rightly so, I should say, and to be careful where anger leads us. The funny thing is, there's a thing in the Bible where we're told to get angry, we're told to be angry in that kind of way, or it's worded in such a way that it sounds like we're being told to get angry, which is very strange when you're perhaps used to trying to keep your anger at bay and trying to get it under control. And for a lot of Christians, that would be their main struggle in terms of sin, is the anger and where that can take them. And some people talk about the red mist and just where that goes, and what that can do to you, or what that can do to other people through you as well. And so there's this kind of strange thing we find in the Bible. We get to Psalm 4, for example, and David's writing there when he's kind of lamenting, I think, around sin around him, perhaps sin against himself, perhaps a lot of difficult things going on, and he's seen a lot of godlessness around him, and things that are really troubling to him. And in Psalm 4, verse 4, he writes, "Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent. Be angry and do not sin." And similarly, in the New Testament, Paul in Ephesians quotes this too. He says, when he's talking about, interestingly, when he's been talking about the gospel for several chapters and what that means, and how we are saved, and how we are then, he then goes on to kind of, because of this gospel of grace, how we are supposed to live, how we're supposed to live that out in our lives, what the new life looks like. And down in chapter 4, verse 26, he says, "Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no opportunity to the devil." So as you read through that, and I was reading through that again the other day, it kind of stops you in your tracks, because it says, be angry and do not sin. And I think that's that's an interesting thing to think about. And I think, putting all this together, what we have to take away from this is that there is a time where it's right to be angry, or there's a type of anger that is righteous, that is even right, that is good, even in some ways. If we look at the life of Jesus, as we always should and must always do, we know Jesus is often spoken of for his love, for his compassion, for his care, for his serving of others, for his at times his gentleness, and at times his willingness to listen, at times to the time he spent with people. But one of the interesting things about Jesus is he was the perfect man, he was sinless man, he was the God man. But at the same time, there were times where he got angry. There were times where that a lot of people who haven't read the Gospels before would be surprised perhaps to see some of the things that Jesus said. And take, for example, famously, there's where he chases the money folks out of the temple, and because they're, in his view, that they just shouldn't have been doing what they were doing in that place. And and one of the things he possibly mostly gets angry at is hypocrisy, and hypocrisy of sort of religious leaders, people that should have been leading the people in the ways of God, but were not doing that themselves, and were adding extra laws and burdens to people that God never gave. He read Matthew 23, where he talks about woe to the scribes and Pharisees, and he calls them hypocrites, shouts at them and gets angry at them. And Jesus experienced grief and lament and anger over the sin of the world around him. And we even think about God. God is described in the Bible as, and I think it's really helpful that he's described this way, as loving. He's abounding in steadfast love, gracious, compassionate, but slow to anger. He's slow to anger. But he is rightly and justly angry at sin. That's why Jesus went to the cross. He bore the wrath of God for our sin, for our wrongdoing. And so there is a sense in which God gets angry, or he's angry at injustice, he's angry at sin, he's angry at wrongdoing, and that's right. And I think there's an extent to which, for us, we can be angry about the wrong kind of things. Take myself, for example. If I like my routines and my structures, and Sometimes if those things get, taken away or interrupted or all those kind of things, I can get frustrated or thinking, oh, that wasn't what I was going to do, or that wasn't, and that can lead to anger, and that's foolish, that's sinful, because it's for the wrong reasons, and it's completely unnecessary. Whereas if we're angry at actual wrongdoing, at actual sin in the world, we look around our world and we should be angry when we see injustice, when we see corruption, when we see people being exploited, when we see abuse of children or abuse of anyone. When we see these things, that should anger us, because it's horrifying, it's not right, and it's not what we would want. And we should look into our own hearts. There are times where we need to be angry at our own sin. And of course, that's the first thing we should always do, isn't it? Examine ourselves before we look around and try and sort everyone else out, but examine our own hearts first. But we should look around, and we should feel anger at wrongdoing that is being done, and even things that have been done to yourself. Someone's mistreated you, or something's been done to you that naturally causes anger. That's not necessarily wrong. It's kind of what we do with that anger that I think is the key. Where do we take it? How do we react to the situation? And I think that Paul's advice in Ephesians is very helpful. He says, be angry and do not sin. So sometimes it's, where does that anger take you? Does the anger take you to retaliation, to violence, to sort of shooting off your mouth and saying something that you'll later regret, to go, rather than trying to resolve the situation or reconcile the situation in a godly, gracious manner? Is it causing you to do something that's sinful? There's different ways to respond when you feel that anger, and there's a wrong way to do it. And he says, be angry and do not sin. So if that anger is there, deal with it in the right way. Even if it's righteous anger, even if it's good, deal with it in the right way. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. So it's kind of, it doesn't mean that the situation needs to be solved immediately, but just in your own heart. It's a good practice, isn't it? And not clinging on and holding on to that anger, to try as best we can to take it before God and bring it before Him and pray about it and deal with it in such a way that we can at least go to bed and have it put to the side a little bit. That can be easier with some things than others, and it's not a lot of things that cause us to be angry do not disappear overnight. We have to remember that, but that's a helpful thing, is it not, to kind of not let the last thing in our mind just be pure anger and rage, but to hand that over to God. And it also, there's an important thing in verse 27 there. It says, do not let the sun go down on your anger and give no opportunity to the devil. It's a great way for Satan to attack his people and to tempt his people into sin, is to exploit our anger and really press in on that and make us feel that and make us want to do something about it, make us want to go strangle someone, or just kind of go off the rails a little bit and flip the lid. And the more that the anger is allowed to linger there and just sit there, the more opportunity there is in our own sin. Sometimes we don't even need the devil, just in our own flesh we're tempted to do things, but there's more opportunity for the evil one to get in and really expose and exploit that and use that to harm ourselves and to harm other people, to harm our witness as Christians. Because as Christians, we don't want to be known for being angry, for outbursts, for rage. We want to be known as gracious, compassionate, kind, patient, loving people. And anger can be a real battle for a lot of people. So there is a way to be angry. There are right things to be angry at, and there are wrong things to be angry at. And what is also important is the response to that. That when we feel that anger, when we feel that rage, we take it to God and we give it to Him and we pray to Him about that situation, and we ask for His help, and we ask for wisdom in responding to a situation, and for Christ-likeness, and for graciousness and compassion. And so don't let the sun go down on our anger and give no opportunity to the devil. So we should all be praying that we would be, if we are to be angry, that it be at the right things, and that the way we respond to and deal with that anger when we feel it would be in the most glorifying to God, Christ-like manner, Spirit-filled manner that we possibly could. So I hope that's been helpful. Exploration of what seems like to us to be a strange verse, or a couple of strange verses, and another reminder of the desire, or we should desire to want to be more like Christ. So I hope that's helpful, and I hope this video has in no way made you angry. We'll see you all soon.